former Clemson football player, Clemson football recruiting assistant, and of course a scout for the NFL Draft Network. Mason Johnstone, a good friend of mine. Mason, thank you for joining the show, man.
Yeah, Madsen, thanks for having me on.
Of course, dude. How you been?
I've been great. It's the best time of the year. I've been awesome.
Yeah, no kidding, man. So when you're watching the draft, was it a little bit different since you've been scouting these guys for, I'd say the past few months? Was it a little bit different for you to watch it than before, or was it the same?
Yeah, it's funny. I think even being super involved, I feel like I had less of a feel for it than anyone else. I mean, it's been really fun, and we kind of get to this point of the year, and I mean, we've been watching these guys for so long that it's kind of a relief. Like, you get to see them. For me, it's been cool because, like, I see these guys at the Senior Bowl, and some of them I've talked to, and then just knowing, other athletes who share their same dreams, like just that moment, seeing them get so excited to walk up, like listening to Will Campbell's speech after he gets drafted. Like, I don't think people don't realize how real that is. And honestly, I thought Green Bay this is the best draft I've watched. I mean, it's been phenomenal. They've done a great job, but it's been a joy.
Yeah, when Matthew Golden got selected, I was fired up because they just cut out all the noise and just focused on the crowd. And then he hopped in the mic. That was sick. That was so cool. Being a former offensive lineman, I know what Will Campbell was saying was real. Like, he meant it, and obviously I'm sure you've had a conversation before with them or two. But when you say that, like, how do you know it's real? It's just knowing the guy, knowing the position? Like, how do you know what he meant was for real?
I think some of it is specific to him. He's been a guy that throughout this whole process, like, we can sit here and talk about it. He's one of the most impressive prospects to me because he was deemed the top offensive lineman, the top tackle in his class after his freshman year. And to come back season after season, he stays healthy, and then he just answers all of these expectations year after year. Now, I don't think this is not a normal fourth overall selection at offensive line. I think it's a weaker class than normal, but a guy like Campbell, this whole process, the reason he got thrusted into that fourth pick is everything we've heard about him off the field. And I've watched countless interviews. I've just watched him break down film. He's got a captivating presence about him. And I think people fail to realize, like, these people that are these evaluators and decision makers, just as much as talent matters, it's the people. I mean, always. And everything, like, I go to Indy or even calling people today trying to figure out why, so-and-so, whoever is dropping or whoever got picked high. And it's always character, because you're glued to this guy for 4 years and you're giving him a ton of money. If he's hard to work with, he's not worth the pick. It doesn't matter the production on the field because it always bleeds over. So Campbell's a guy that I think uniquely, he's just a special person, a special leader. I think he's going to be great for New England.
Yeah, no doubt. It's definitely a position of need, being able to block Drake May's blind side. So you mentioned character was a key component for him being picked. And I talked earlier in the show about Shedeur, and I still think he's a talented player, but maybe it's a mix of reasons. Maybe it's one more so than the other. But do you think his character was part of the slide for Shedeur and having Jackson Dart go above him? What was your kind of take on it?
So it's tough. I don't have an answer. I think my opinion on Shedeur, because I got to watch him step up to the podium at the Combine. And, even Cam Ward's right next to him. Everyone's going to see Shedeur.
Yeah, no kidding.
He's got this brand and he's got this noise around him. I think there's a chance that the character stuff, I mean, look, Deion Sanders has a reputation in the NFL. Good or bad, whoever you ask, he's got a reputation. And I think that carries more weight than what we're just considering with Shedeur. I don't know that that's what moved the needle, but I do think that that's something teams were wary of. And I saw all the reports, everyone, they think he's arrogant and they think he's cocky. I see a guy, especially when he was at the Combine, who has had to defend himself for half a decade. I mean, there's a guy that went to Jackson State, and then he goes to Colorado, and they don't have a bunch of success the first year, and now he's not worth the crap. And And now he, has a great year, and now he's too arrogant and cocky. So he gets up to the podium and immediately goes into defense mode. But what I saw was exactly what I want to see from my quarterback. You might say arrogance. I say like a true confidence, like an unwavering confidence.
Yep.
And that's what you have to have at that position. Like those characteristics, it's a double-edged sword. Like that's kind of what you want. You want a guy who knows he's better than everyone.
Yeah, no doubt. I totally agree with that. And again, this is Mason Johnstone, joined the show, former Clemson football player, and obviously a big scout for the Draft Network. And Mason, I mean, I think that your word for it holds some weight because you played college football, you played high school, you've been playing football almost your whole life. So, hearing that, I totally agree. I think my take on it was he's confident in who he is, and for whatever immaturities you might say he has, he's a kid. I mean, we're in college, it's like
right.
He can quote unquote grow up when he's in the league, when he has, maybe if he goes to Pittsburgh, Cam Hayward around him who's 35 years old, or whatever team he goes, there's going to be veterans that help him. That's my take on that.
100%.
Yeah. So I got to ask you about the shocker, and then we'll get into more, real draft talk about some players. But the shocker of the draft was Travis Hunter going pick number 2. In my opinion, or not number 2, but going to the Jags. And I thought it was a great move. I said they're getting a generational player who is going to be able to bring out the generational talent Lawrence has. And so when you have that meshed together, I think it's the right move. I mean, in your eyes, how does Travis Hunter fit into this Jags offense? And did they make the right decision to say, let's just go for it and get him?
Yeah, I think I'm totally with you. This was absolutely the perfect move. And I was actually on Jacksonville radio earlier this week talking about it.
Yeah.
The guy I talked to, this is right when Ashton Genty, that smoke kind of came out. And the idea was, and it made sense, I didn't really support it at first, but he talked me through it. And James Gladstone's sitting there. Number one, he's got no tie to the guys that he didn't draft. So, the discussions about Travis Etienne, as much as I love him, and I think he's still a great pro, Gladstone's got no, ties, no strings to him. So had he gone Genty, it would have been okay. And the idea was that, we're starting from scratch. And you could take Mason Graham, and that's probably going to be a double, maybe even a triple. But the idea was, Ashton Genty, that could be a home run. Well, Now you're talking about Travis Hunter, and you just said generational, and I almost think it's an understatement. This is a guy that I think people are desensitized to it because this is, year 3 of us being exposed to him. If this guy just comes out, and I think, my honest opinion, I think Gladstone should play on both sides of the ball as much as they can.
And do you think that he wouldn't lose a step that way?
I'm not willing to apply the normal people logic to Travis Hunter.
That's fair. He's been defying odds since forever, as long as I've ever known of him. He's been doing
right.
that.
And this is a guy that he just comes in and he's a good corner and he's a good receiver. He's going to be already one of the most valuable players in the entire league. And I see people getting upset about, giving away a future first-round pick. Like, this guy's worth, separately on either side of the ball, he's worth a first-round pick. So he's at least worth 2, but he's under 1 contract. So he's got to be worth more than that. I mean, economically, he's the most valuable player that we've seen as long as he's playing both sides of the ball. And he's elite. Like, he is the best corner and the best receiver in the class. That's just unbelievable.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. My opinion on it, too, is everyone's saying, well, that pick could be worth something next year. And it's like, well, Jacksonville, you look at their roster, they have a lot of really good players. They needed an elite guy, and they got that both sides of the ball. I really think they could make the play. I'm willing to say they're going to make the playoffs now because I just have that much respect for Liam Cohen and Trevor and obviously Travis Hunter being there.
Yeah, I 100% agree. That division's wide open. And I mean, I can't get behind anyone. Travis Hunter could very well, I've never seen a prospect where you go, hey, there's a very legitimate chance this guy's going to walk out the best football player of all time. If he does what he's been doing, if he just stays the same guy and he can stay, healthy long enough, that's what we're talking about. This is a greatest of all time kind of player.
Yeah, no doubt. So being in South Carolina right now, a hometown team is the Carolina Panthers, and they drafted Ted McMillan. And I think you saw me on Twitter. I was like, I'm not a Panther guy. I'm not a fan of any team necessarily, but I like Bryce Young, and I think McMillan was over-criticized for no reason. I mean, my whole thing is you have two bubbles when you draft someone, A's potential and B's production that they showed. He has both. I mean, did you think it was a reach? Was this the right move? What are your thoughts on McMillan to the Panthers rather than maybe a Jalen Walker?
Yeah, I thought it was the perfect pick, and I thought it was going to be Jalen Walker. But
yeah, everyone did.
Right, and what I think happened maybe with that is, and there are times when I look through Jalen's film, and I don't want to discredit him for anything because he's a first-round player without a doubt. He looks his size sometimes at the line of scrimmage. I think there's a chance people saw him more as a situational, line of scrimmage player and more of a green dot off the ball linebacker. It sounds like Carolina that it was Tet the whole way. And I know Dallas wanted him at 12. So I don't know what happened. Matthew Golden ran so well at the combine that everyone just decided to disregard the film that Dory McMillan's put out the last 3 years. But I don't think the league ever wavered. I think it's a great pick. It's exactly what you want. I mean, you've got a young quarterback who, God, you almost lost him, right? Like, you almost lost your first overall pick, and he finally shows life at the end of the season. It's a perfect way to just build on the momentum. Add him a young receiver, a guy who can win multiple kinds of matchups. Yeah,
no doubt. And switching over to Atlanta, because you touched on Jalen Walker, and they made that big move for James Pierce, giving up that extra first to get him. Whatever you can make of it, I don't care about that right now. Looking at these two players, Jalen Walker, James Pierce, what are they going to add to Atlanta, and how do you think they fit their scheme on defense and allow for them to, as we've been saying all year long, get some sacks on the board?
Yeah, no, I mean, that drum's been beaten for, God, it feels like
forever.
Years
now.
The trade is whatever. You can argue about the value. I think if Jalen Walker, the role that I have in mind for him is, this is a guy that immediately steps into a leadership role on your defense. I don't think he has the same impact from a production standpoint, at least from a pressure or sack standpoint, that James Pierce is going to have. I think James Pierce, the idea is that's the sack guy. That's the guy that was second on our board for a reason. And the idea, I think, was that Atlanta was almost going to trade back just to get James Pierce. But Jalen Walker fell, and they felt like they had to take him, and then they end up getting both. So it kind of makes me think that there's a bigger picture there, and that it will be less of them sharing that load on the line of scrimmage and more being compatible with each other.
Yeah, I like that. I like that idea, and I think James Pierce is one of the more polarizing prospects. I thought he was a really, really productive player for Tennessee off the edge. I like the move. I don't think, if we're talking about a value standpoint, I'd be willing to part with the first from next year because I think that highly of him. I think he can really help out. So
no,
yeah,
I agree.
I
love James Pierce.
Yeah, no, he's good. So looking at the draft as a whole, how this first round unfolded, is there a specific player that went to a specific team where you're like, that player and that scheme on that team, it's magical? Like, what's that guy for you? And I know Travis Hunter might be an obvious, but someone outside of him.
Yeah, let me think. I'll say.
I know it's a tough question. I know.
I want to give you a good answer. I really think that, and I don't want to go. This is not the answer, but of a guy who went first round, who I actually think could have bigger implications than people are realizing, is Kelvin Banks.
Okay.
He had an interesting narrative throughout the whole process. He was always highly regarded. And then the season rolls around. I think he put out some great film. I think he played well. But for generally, the temperature was that this is a guy that's probably going to end up closer to the middle or back half of the first round. Then all of a sudden, a day or two before the draft, we start hearing, no, Kelvin Banks is way higher on people's list. Now, with New Orleans, it's tough. You've got Trevor Penning, who you just declined your fifth-year option. Then you've got Talise Fuaga, who's playing left tackle and probably is not a long-term left tackle. He had a great year, but I think naturally he's a right tackle. So the idea is between Banks, Penning, and Fuaga, which within the last 4 years, you've spent legitimate capital to build your offensive line. I think you have to find a way that Banks fits into that. And he's one that I think he just kind of got picked and everyone was like, oh, wow, that's interesting. But But I really do think that he can be the missing piece if you potentially move Trevor Penning in at guard, where the whole deal with Penning has been he's been a great run blocker, but he's a middling protector. That can get eliminated with a move at guard. And then you put Kelvin at left tackle and Fuaga at right, or however you want to do it. But that was one that really just kind of struck a chord with me. But yeah.
Yeah, no, that's a good opinion on it. I think Banks has been, I pointed out on Twitter. I mean, if you're a Clemson fan, which a lot of people in this area are, if they remember that playoff game, he was just killing people on the line. So that was enough for me to be like, he's legit. Obviously, you know a little bit more about the scouting department than I do, but he just looks the part.
100%.
My last question I have for you, Mason, before we wrap it up here. Again, this is Mason Johnstone, Clemson football recruiting assistant, and works for the Draft Network. Make sure you check out his Twitter, his stuff. It's good. He has a lot of good insight on it. But Mason, my question to you is, looking at these day 2 guys, is there anyone in particular that we should keep an eye out for to say, like, he's a good guy, he could be really good? And yeah, just what's your take on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be interesting to see how some of these corners fall, because this is an interesting class, and honestly, the entire defensive back class.
Yeah, Eamon Warry. Yeah.
Right, Eamon Warry's still on the board. I think a guy like Xavier Watts is still on the board. I think you can see Andrew Makuba go in round 2. And then the corners, I mean, Will Johnson, who for a long time was widely regarded as a blue chip prospect in this draft, falls out of the first round because of medical reasons. And I'm curious to see who's going to take the swing on him, because, I mean, talking about a guy who evidently he's not going to play for very long. I think that's the concern. But they said the same thing about Rob Gronkowski when he came out.
And they said about Miles Jack, and he had a great career as a linebacker. I totally agree with that.
Yeah, and if you sit there, and that's the funny thing. I actually heard it. I heard it from I can't remember the guy's name, but he's an old GM, and he talked about how a lot of these guys hear that and they get scared. Like, these GMs get scared, like, oh, he might not make it to a second contract. If you don't take him, neither will you. Like, that's the idea.
Yeah.
So I think Will Johnson's a guy that you swing on right here in the second round, and you hope and pray that it'll work out. Because if it does, you're the genius. You're the guy that was smarter than everyone else.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Barrett Carter, do you think he gets his name called in the second or third round?
Yeah, I hope so.
Yeah, he's a good player. I'm not just saying to say he's a linebacker, so they fall down some, but he's a dog.
Yeah, and I think with him it's interesting, just because the linebacker position, like you said, as a whole, the values just dwindled, and this is an interesting class of guys who I think he shares some similarities with. I could see him going to the back of the third, but I think he's probably going to go day 3. I think R.J. Mickens is a guy that could late day 2 here come into play. But I mean, truthfully, I think all these guys should go higher than that. Especially Barrett.